Good afternoon, ladies. Was lunch good? All right, let's get a round of applause for our cooks. Today we will be singing No Tears in Heaven, page number 478, 478, verses 1 and 3. No Tears in Heaven, page number 478, verses 1 and 3. Let's sing. No tears in heaven, no sorrows given, all will be glory in that land. No need, no sadness, all will be gladness, when we shall join that happy band. No tears.
Today we will be singing Mansion Over the Hilltop, page number 479, verses 1 through 3. Again, that is Mansion Over the Hilltop, 479, 1 through 3. Let's sing. I'm satisfied with just the cottage below, a little silver and a little gold, but in that city where the ransom will shine, I want a gold one, that silver line. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old, and someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are purest gold. Don't think me poor or deserted or lonely. I'm not discouraged. I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of a city. I want a mansion, a robe and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old, and someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are purest gold.
Good afternoon, ladies. Today we'll be singing Faithful Love. This
song is not in the book. Again, it is Faithful Love, and we'll be singing verses 1 and 2. Let's sing. Faithful love flowing down from the thorn-covered ground makes me whole, saves my soul, washes whiter than snow. Faithful love calms each fear, reaches down, dries each tear, holds my hand when I can't stand on my own. Faithful love from above came to earth to show the Father's love, and I'll never be the same, for I've seen faithful love face to face, and Jesus is His name. Faithful love is a friend just when hope seems to end. Welcome face, sweet embrace, tender touch filled with grace. Faithful love, endless power, living flame, spirit star, burning bright in the night, guiding my way. Faithful love from above came to earth to show the Father's love, and I'll never be the same, for I've seen faithful love face to face, and Jesus is His name.
Our next verse will be John 15, 12 through 17. Again, this is John 15, 12 through 17. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends, for all things that I heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, He may give you. These things I command you, that you love one another.
Hello again. What a wonderful meal. Thank you, those who've already been appreciated, but I want to appreciate you as well for that lovely meal. It was interesting that Michelle put in her bio that she loves tea parties. I thought that was great, and I love coffee. So, I'm not going to ask you what's in your cup. I might judge you if it's decaf, but but I love being able to share with friends coffee and things like that. So very cool. Well, today we are going to talk about friendship. Obviously, our main focus will be about biblical friendship, but I also want to take a few minutes to look at all the different varieties of approaches to friendship as well, like the science behind friendship, the psychology, and how we can have some health advantages in maintaining healthy friendships. So let's start with digging into the science of friendship. According to the American Psychology Association, the science behind friendship can be observed in changes in the body and brain. Healthy friendships protect us in part by changing the way we respond to stress. The blood pressure reactivity is lower when we have a supportive friend to talk to. Scientists also have studied that friendship have even found similar brain activity among friends. Now, that's a little scary too. But in those regions of our brain that are responsible for some of our functions like motivation and reward and identity and just processing different senses. So that was interesting, finding that out with the behind the science of friendship. But it also keeps us healthy. A review of 38 studies found that adult friendships, especially the high-quality ones, provide social support and companionship, significantly predict well-being, and can protect us from mental health issues such as depression, heart problems, and a range of chronic diseases. And those benefits can also benefit us through across the age of our growth, our lifespan. Somehow those get out of order. That's okay. But anyway, so psychology research also suggests that these stable, healthy friendships are crucial to our well-being and longevity, and that having these social connections is one of the most reliable predictors of a long, healthy, and satisfying life. I don't know if you would agree, but I do. I think that's a great study to start with, just kind of the science behind the need of friendships. But I wanted to also look at a kind of a survey of different women. I asked what were some of the major qualities that they looked for in a friend. And I think that you might agree with some of these qualities, but I wanted to give you the common answers that I found and some of the Bible verses that support these qualities. They're not in any specific order. Qualities of friendship: being trustworthy, carrying each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ, Galatians 6:2. Being respectful, as we heard from Michelle earlier, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself. That's in Philippians 2:3. Forgiving, bear with one another and forgive one another. Any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. Colossians 3:13. Loyal. A friend loves at all time, and a brother is born for adversity. That's a common one we know about friendship. Proverbs 17:17. Being reliable. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10. Other qualities: someone that's positive. Let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. I think Michelle mentioned that verse as well, too, Hebrews 10:24. Other qualities: being supportive. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And then someone who is non-judgmental. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ forgave you. Two more I found. Good listener. Listen to advice and accept discipline, and at the end you'll be counted among the wise. Proverbs 19:20. And then the last one was honesty, being honest. Don't lie to each other, since you've taken off your old self with its practices. Colossians 3:9. So I wanted to look at some of those qualities and then where some of these qualities play out in the Old Testament and the New Testament examples. Some of these examples might be a little different, but I think you'll see at least the relationship there and how that kind of turns into friendship. For example, let's start with Job's friends. They showed up. And that's, really sometimes the hardest thing to do, but the most important thing. They would have been good friends had they just shown up and been silent, right? But there we go, talking sometimes, putting our foot in our mouth. But they were wrong in the words that they chose to say to comfort Job. They were wrong in what they assumed Job had done to deserve that. They were wrong in what they assumed about God. That should teach us a little something about assumptions. But like Job's friends, many people think bad things only happen to bad people. But sadly, Job was really accurate when he referred to these men as sorry comforters. Later in Job, though, God tells Job's friends that, you didn't do right by me. You didn't speak right about the nature of me. And they ended up having to make that right to God by offering sacrifices. Another example we have is Abraham in Isaiah 41:8. And it says here that he was a friend of God. What an honor to be called out in Scripture as a friend of God. I mean, that just still blows my mind. I mean, we're children of God. But can you think about being a friend of God? That's really cool. Ruth and Naomi, we have to mention this one. In Ruth, we find that after following a severe famine, Elimelech and his wife Naomi, they took their 2 sons to live in the country of Moab. But tragically, Elimelech died, and years later, Naomi's 2 sons had married 2 women, Ruth and Orpah. They died too. So instead of returning home, Ruth insisted on accompanying Naomi to Israel. And of course, we get the famous passage of, don't urge me to leave you. I want to stay with you. I want to be loyal. I want to go where you go and stay where you stay. And your people will be my people and your God, my God. So that beautiful relationship that was cultivated between a mother and her daughter-in-law is quite interesting. It's really neat. But despite being from different cultures and places and generations, they were able to have a strong a relationship that was bound to one another, and it was a sacrificial relationship in ways. Another example we have also is Jonathan and David in 1 Samuel 18. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. They had a sacrificial friendship too. They were friends even though their situation made them rivals for the crown. Jonathan was the eldest son of King Saul, and David the son of Jesse. There was tension there, but loyalty, even to the point of warning him that, hey, my dad's going to kill you. That's pretty loyal between Jonathan and David. And then Mary and Elizabeth in Luke chapter 1, we see that Mary goes to visit her relative Elizabeth, and she's pregnant with John the Baptist. And, they were there for these really big moments for one another. She enters into her home, and she says, oh, blessed is the child that you will bear. And the baby leaped in her womb. It's a really moving story. And it just kind of shows the supportive nature of our friendships during our really big moments in life. And then, of course, we have Jesus and his disciples. His 12 were his closest friends. Some were closer than others. We know they were loyal to Jesus until it got hard, but then they came back. They didn't always understand what Jesus was teaching them. They didn't always support Jesus like they should, but Jesus did teach them a lot about relationships. Specifically in John 15, greater love has no than this, than a person will lay his life down for his friends. But I've called you friends because all things that I've heard from my Father I have made known to you. So there's that friendship example that Jesus taught his disciples. How many of us remember our very first best friend? Anybody? Okay. If you're like me, I had a flavor of the week of friends in preschool. I would go and say, oh, this is my best friend, and the next day was someone else. I don't even know who they are now, but that was early elementary, that was preschool. But I do remember my longest standing friend, and Tara's already mentioned that, but it was in January of 1998, 26 years ago. I moved to Chattanooga, and I was getting a tour of the school. We were going to start the next day, and Tara was in there shooting baskets. And she introduced herself as Tara, and I'm like, oh, I'm Cara. That's really similar a name. Didn't think anything of that initial meeting. Then the next few days at school, I remembered meeting her. And then here we are, 26 years later. And someone asked me at lunch, they said, so how did you and Tara marry brothers? I'm like, well, it's Tara's fault that I didn't go to Harding. I went to Fried-Hardeman, and where I met my husband. And then at our wedding, Tara caught my bouquet, and Chance caught my garter, and 5 years later, they were married. I mean, it's a weird fairy tale story, but it happened. So I didn't know that day in the gymnasium that I would be handpicking my future sister-in-law, but I don't regret it. I convinced Chance it wasn't that hard to marry her. So, but if you have ever taken a psychology class in high school or college, you'll be familiar with this chart. I don't know if you can see it that well up there, but I wanted just to point out a couple of things about this theory of psychosocial stages. I love psychology. I love relationships. And so what I really wanted to look at is the column that says virtue. So you have the different stages. You have the basic conflict that happens in that stage of life and the description. But in these stages, you'll see there's a virtue that is taught or learned in that moment. And you'll see there's hope, will, purpose, competence, fidelity, love, care, and wisdom. And sometimes we'll see in our stages of friendships where we're stuck maybe in some of those areas. And if we are stuck in an area like that, maybe it's our expectation is off, or their expectation of us might be off a little bit, or we're just struggling and not progressing through some of these stages of our personal development. So this is an interesting, there are many different theories out there on psychosocial stages of development, but this was one that I think is important to review. But moving with that in mind, there are some stages of friendship that I was able to listen to some of our discussions. We have a lot of elementary and preschool teachers in this room. And I bet they understand some of these stages that children go through as they are learning and how to keep and make friends. So I have a resource that I'll put up that's from Kids First, and they're child psychologists, and they often refer parents to this model to kind of understand where their kids are in learning their friendships and navigating the social side of life. And so the first stage is this momentary playmate stage, and these ages are approximate, like our stages in development. They aren't always exact. But the momentary playmates, they see the friends as playmates in the exact moment of what they're doing. That's it. If they're having fun together, that's their friend. They're kids that are just conveniently in the area that they're able to do some of the same things with. They have a very limited ability to see perspectives of the other child. They assume that everyone thinks the way they do. And you're thinking, I have a friend like that now. No. But they definitely make comments like they don't want to be my friend anymore just because they want to do something different. So that's the first stage, that momentary playmate. Second stage is this one-way assistance. And in this stage, children understand that friend maybe exists somewhere outside of play, that they're still limited, but maybe this friend is someone who does nice things for me. And it might not be while we're playing right now. They might save them a seat on the bus. They might share a treat with them, or they might give them a present or write them a note. The children at this level start to really care about friendships. They even might put up with someone who's not so nice as a friend, just so they can say they have a friend, or they might be the not so nice friend, but as they're trying to navigate and figure out what is a friendship. But they also may bargain a little and say, hey, I will be your friend if, right? You've heard that before. I won't be your friend unless you do this. So that's stage 2. Stage 3, we're looking at a two-way friendship, ages 6 to 12 approximately. At this stage, they can consider maybe what the other person wants or needs. There's a big part of fairness going here. It's two-way. Like, I get this, you get that. They're kind of keeping score in a way. If they do something nice for someone, then, ooh, got dark. If they do something nice for someone, they expect them to do something nice for them. And they're also very self-critical at this stage. they're thinking, oh, no one's going to like me because I have this silly haircut. Or they're very, very conscious about maybe the clothes they're wearing, wanting to fit in, setting kind of the norms within their groups of friends, their peers. And then stage 4, we have that intimate and mutually shared relationship. This stage, friends help each other solve problems. They confide in them. They start to build trust. They know how to compromise. They do things without keeping score. So it's okay if I don't get that in return. I still want to do that for someone else. For some children, this is where they're joined at the hip, and they just don't do anything with anyone else. They're very exclusive, or inclusive, too. But the girls, more often than boys, may be best friends and expect to do everything together. They feel deeply betrayed if their best friend chooses to be with another friend. So if you're thinking, I might be in that stage still, we're trying to move to this last stage where I hope most of our friendships are staying healthy, and that's in that mature friendship stage. That's from adolescence to adulthood. At this stage, we place a high value on emotional closeness with friends. They accept and even appreciate differences. Kind of how we talked earlier about the grace. Young people who develop mature friendships are not as possessive as they might have been, and they don't feel as threatened when a friend has another friend. Mature friendships also, they emphasize the trust and support, even when they're not, in the same area, over distances. There's that bond there that can still be cultivated over time. So I encourage you just to think about these stages, maybe where your children are, if you have young children, or if you are in one of these stages, and trying to move into that mature friendship. Might need to work on boundaries, might need to do some self-reflecting on maybe this is me that I'm stuck in some of these other stages. But just some self-awareness. But that's kind of where we're headed next, is I wanted to share a little bit about where we can apply our friendships. And the main area we can apply friendships is our self-awareness and our service. And if we can apply that self-awareness, that means I know what God expects of me, and I know what I expect of myself. And if I have those priorities, like Michelle mentioned, in place, the rest will fit together. And I will have healthy and thriving relationships. But with that primary relationship we really need to focus on is our relationship with God. And that is primarily given in our study with God. In 2 Timothy 2:15, be diligent to present yourself approved to God as a worker who does not need to be ashamed, and accurately handling the word of truth. That is a big, big responsibility, to accurately handle the word of truth. But we're not going to be able to do that if we don't study. So we have to spend time with God first. And of course, spending time with God also means we need to pray. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and pleading with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And also meditate. That's where I think in our time with God and we're meditating, we can use self-reflection and think about where we are. Like Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence and in anything worthy of praise, think about these things. There's a lot of things to think about in that verse. And if we spend some time to meditate and reflect and kind of do a self-check, we can strengthen our relationship with God first and foremost with our self-awareness. And also, as Michelle mentioned in her lesson, we got to prioritize God and by seeking first his kingdom. But also others, service to others. If you can, turn with me to Colossians. We're going to look at some of these one another passages. Colossians 3:12 through 17. It says, so as those who have been chosen to God, holy and beloved, put on a heart of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, bearing with one another and forgiving each other. Whoever has a complaint against anyone, just as the Lord forgave you, so must you also. In addition to all these things, put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity. Let the peace of Christ, to which you were indeed called in one body, rule in your hearts and be thankful. Let the word of Christ richly dwell within you, with all wisdom, teaching and admonishing with one another. There it is, that one another, with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with thankfulness in your hearts to God. Whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. That service to one another in being able to teach and admonish. We've talked about that all day today, all of the things that we've had in our discussion. That is how we serve one another. And that is where we need to apply most in our friendship, is service. And also, John 13 says, I'm giving you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have loved one another. It's kind of repetitive. I think it might be important. Love one another. Romans 12, be devoted to one another. Seeing these one another passages, really see, oh, I've got to do that for you, and you need to do that for me. That's how one another works. Brotherly love, give preference to one another in honor, preserving in tribulation, devoted to prayer, not lagging behind in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, contributing to the needs of the saints, practicing hospitality. I mean, if you want a checklist of how you can serve one another, here's one right here. Bless those who persecute you. Ooh, bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind toward one another. Do not be haughty in mind, but associate with the lowly, and do not be wise in your own estimation. And then Romans 13:8, owe nothing to anyone except to love one another. For the one who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. And last, in our service to one another, Galatians 6:10, so then while we have opportunity, let's do good to all people, and especially to those who are the household of faith. So I think we know what we need to do. Now is putting that into practice. And, one kind of catch phrase that I used to put in the classrooms when I was an elementary school counselor, a lot of the times it was just about relationships and the kids not getting along, or a misunderstanding or a conflict. And you could see kind of where they were stuck in some of those early stages. But I would put the best way to make a friend is to be a friend. Something really simple of that golden rule concept. A lot of them would kind of start to get it after a little while of, and I think even in our discussion groups, you kind of are more willing to give grace to someone if you've received it. You're more willing to do these things for one another if you're also receiving that. So I kind of came up with just a little thing to remember. It's time to care. Let's never forget that it's time to trust, invest, have mercy, show mercy, encourage each other, care with compassion, acceptance, respect, and empathy. And if we can do these things, no matter what stage we're going through, we can take time to care for one another, we will be blessed. We will be blessed because we're doing for others, and that's what God wants for all of us. Thank you so much.
Going to break out into our last breakout group, so go ahead and dismiss to your classroom.